Let's now explore the concept of using a film strip and CSS keyframes to create an animation. So, any of you who are familiar with sequential animation will understand this concept. Okay, so let's talk about what we're doing here. I'm using Illustrator, but you could likely use whatever tool you want as long as the end result is a film strip. Okay, so the concept here is we are now going to have our astronaut floating in space, but we're going to do this with incremental frames. And this animation will be set up with 10 frames. So in Illustrator, I'm just going to use 10 artboards. Now, if I get my artboard tool here and select artboard 1, we see that we have a width and a height of 300 pixels. And the remaining 9 artboards are the same. And I want them adjacent to one another. I want them butted up. There's no space in between. So you can create this however you like when you set up your document. You could do this one at a time, or when you make your document, you could say 300 by 300, 10 artboards, no space in between, and then set their layout to linear. All right, so the amount of artboards is going to be directly relational to either the length of your animation or the smoothness of your animation. So I'm just going to use 10 just to get the concept across here. But obviously, the larger the artboards, the more artboards, the more artwork, you're going to create a more complex file which you export at the end. So I've gone ahead and set up my artboards, and then I wanted to create, in this case, an 11th artboard. And this 11th artboard is 300 pixels tall by 3,000 pixels long, because there's 10, and each frame in the film strip will be 300 pixels wide. Now, the dimensions are going to be completely up to what it is you are trying to achieve. All right, so I have taken my astronauts and I placed them where I wanted them in each frame. And then the easiest thing to do is I just selected all of them, and you can do an option drag, option drag shift. And you want to drag them down to the single artboard. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. So what's going to happen is you're going to select all of your art, and then you'll copy it and place your art within this single artboard. So now what we should be able to do is File, and we're going to export, and we'll export as. You'll give this a name. I'll just call this Space Entity 2 for right now, just as an example. And we could even call this Film Strip. I'm just going to save this to the desktop for a moment. You can save your files wherever you like. And then I'm going to use artboards. I'm going to set my range to artboard 11, and I'll export as a PNG. So we'll go ahead and click export. Resolution, not really that important anymore, but we'll leave this at 72. Remember, what's important is the aspect ratio, the width and the height, and resolution's not such a big deal in our screen layout anymore. Okay, so we'll leave this at 72. Anti-aliasing says type optimized, and I'm going to go art optimized. And then I don't need interlacing. I don't need this to draw from the top down or multiple fields. So our background will be transparent, and we'll click OK. And if I just open this up in preview, we should see that we now have our film strip, which will be 3,000 pixels long and 300 pixels tall. Now the example that I'm going to work with next, I went ahead and when I did the export, I changed the height to 200. Therefore, the width became 2000. Okay, that's just because I only needed my frame to be 200 by 200, and I exported at that size. But anyway, you get the idea here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that file, and what we will do next is go into Codepen, and we will begin to lay out our artwork and write our code. We'll do that next.